Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my lifelong next-door neighbor and childhood best friend,
Cramer, England.
And it's a first.
It is a first.
It's a first on the Oner podcast. We are in the same place.
We are.
Yes. I'm in your basement.
Yes.
I've been taken against my will.
We were in our parents' basements last week, and now you're in my basement.
I'm in your basement, and I'm here with like the set, with the backdrop, and we're seeing it live.
Yes.
We just went and saw Friendship from A24. We've got a lifelong friendship. We met when we were 4 years old, and we just went and saw Friendship. We just got back from it.
Yeah, we did. We just got back from the theater.
So here we are. Let's see how we do in the same room as each other. What for initial thoughts on Friendship?
This movie was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. You definitely need to know what to expect when you go into the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it is very much a Tim Robinson movie.
For sure. So if you're not familiar with I Think You Should Leave, the series on Netflix, if you've never watched Detroiters, if you've never seen Tim Robinson's episode of The Characters from Netflix, maybe like do a crash course on YouTube and watch some like I Think You Should Leave highlights before, because I imagine if you're not familiar with such a specific comedic voice, this movie would be like, what am I, like, just insane.
Yeah.
You know?
It would make no sense.
Yeah.
Like, luckily this week I watched a bunch of Tim Robinson clips and like from I Think You Should Leave. And I knew about him before. I knew that he was a little offbeat and a little bit strange, but like watching that was definitely helpful to get the feel and the tone of what his comedy brand is.
Yeah.
So if you want to go see this movie, watch some stuff so that you know what you're getting in. If you don't like his style of comedy, then don't really see it. You're probably not going to like it.
Yeah. That being said, I really do like his style of comedy.
I do as well.
I was laughing from the beginning of the film all the way through to the end of the film. Yeah. I mean, there's some sequences where the laughter kind of dips down and
it does.
And the movie takes like a tonal shift. And I think that that's intentional from the screenplay and from the directing. But I mean, there's one sequence in this movie where we were laughing so hard. We were laughing for like 10 minutes into the next scene.
Yeah.
I was crying. I was laughing so hard.
I was trying to stop laughing so I could hear what was going on in the movie.
I wonder what this would have been like to see this in a more packed theater, because we saw this in a theater where it was us and like a much older married couple, like 4 rows in front of us, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt bad sometimes when I was laughing really hard, because I was like, I hope they're laughing too, and then I'm not ruining the movie for them. But I'm also like, I'm sorry, it's a funny movie. But then I did hear them laughing.
I heard them laughing as well.
And that relaxed me. But I wondered what this movie would be like seeing it in a more full setting.
Yeah. Yeah. With a packed theater, I would have loved to see what that was like too.
You know, it reminded me of like, I remember as a teenager, the first time I saw the movie Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
And that's a movie that has such a unique comedic voice to it.
Yeah.
And such a specific thing. I remember like laughing from beginning to end in that movie, and I remember my friends looking down the row at me like, what are you laughing at? Which was, it was weird too, because I feel like the comedic voice of Napoleon Dynamite is a Utah voice.
Yeah.
Even though it's set in
Idaho.
In Idaho, it's stuff that like those characters are people we grew up with.
Yeah.
And so they're saying things that it's like when Napoleon Dynamite says to his Uncle Rico, "Get off my property." I'm like that's the most Utah thing
it really was
ever. And I said that to my girlfriend who's not from Utah. I was like, did you grow up and have people say like, "Get off my property"? And she's like, "No." I was like, yeah, like we would say that, like we would get mad, like us, we'd get mad at each other and be like, "Get off my property or I'll call the cops on you."
Yeah, that we definitely said that. We're like, freaking 12 gauge, dude. The way and the tone and like the reactions are very, it's very this culture of Utah.
Like, calling someone like a fart knocker or something, like,
yeah.
But that's a movie that like this movie has a very unique comedic voice. And if you don't know what that voice is going in, if you have no frame of reference for it, it's just a weird movie.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's what, this movie is definitely that. It's not like a comedy that has easy access points like a Zoolander or,
no, it's definitely not Anchorman.
Right.
Like that. I was explaining it to my wife and she's like, well, what is this movie? And I was like, well, it's got this comedian, like it's really offbeat. And then like when I called her after, she's like, was the movie funny? I was like, it was hilarious, but it was not like Anchorman. Like Anchorman, you'll just laugh and it's like comedy that is ridiculous, but everybody can kind of get it. This is definitely below that. Like you have to know it's very cringy and it's very offbeat and it's kind of like pushed to the max in the most mundane way. Yeah. But it's so funny.
And again, it's like, it's familiarize yourself with the comedy of Tim Robinson and the comedic voice of Tim Robinson before you go. I think most people who are going to see the film right now probably are. I even felt like the reason why this older married couple is here tonight that we were seeing the movie with is I bet one of them or both of them are fans of I Think You Should Leave. And they were, because I'm like, who else is going to see this movie in Utah County? And apparently it's just us and them.
Yeah, apparently. Like unless they really like Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
But they were laughing. So it makes me think, okay, they get it.
Yeah.
Like they were laughing at parts where you were supposed to laugh. And if you didn't understand, you wouldn't be laughing. So yeah, they got to be fans. Like,
yeah. A big question of this film for me afterward is it was written and directed by, and I think this is a debut.
It
right?
is. Yes, it is.
What's the guy's name?
Andrew DeYoung. Yeah.
Andrew DeYoung, writer, director. And as much as it's definitely, you can feel the director making a movie that he's kind of crafted. And I think that there's some really nice elements with the cinematography and the score. I really liked the score.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting artistic choices. It still winds up feeling like a Tim Robinson film. It feels like a prolonged I Think You Should Leave sketch. Yeah. And so it makes me wonder how much of the script from DeYoung was written with the comedic voice of Tim Robinson in mind, or how much of it was like, here's the scene, now I've cast Tim Robinson, let me kind of let him go. It's like, I brought up Jim Carrey earlier.
Yeah.
That in his era in the 90s, I got to imagine like the screenplay for Liar Liar didn't say, and then Jim says, wee woo, wee wee woo. Like, like I don't think that, like, I think that like they would write scenes and then be like, and Jim, if you want to just go. And it sort of feels like that in this movie, that he's like, here's the scene, and Tim, if you want to just try some stuff, or if you have suggestions. Or did Andrew DeYoung like did he have a really good beat on Tim Robinson's comedic voice and write lines for him?
Yeah, I feel like this was written, this is just my guess. This is not much of an educated guess, but I feel like he wrote it with Tim Robinson in mind, or he wrote it with him in the sense that like they knew they were going to make this film together. Because it does feel like a sketch, like a prolonged sketch, but it also does feel like a movie. Yeah. Like my biggest fear going into this movie is it was going to feel like just a TV show. And it did not. I was really happy that it didn't feel that way. Yeah. Like, I mean, it definitely is like, it kind of took some weird, left turns and things like that. But it felt like this guy went on a journey, and it didn't feel like just like a really long TV show. So, I mean, even though it is like a long sketch, it still felt like a movie. So, but I have to think that like, I don't see this movie with anybody else in this role. So I feel like he had to like, they had a conversation and they had to come up with this movie together is what it feels like most natural in my mind.
Well, and especially because there's also like in the supporting cast, there's a lot of people from the Tim Robinson universe that show up. I recognize several of his friends in supporting roles that would pop up, and I like Connor O'Malley has a funny little cameo, and there's a couple of other people that I know I've seen him hanging out with on like social media and stuff, and so I imagine Andrew DeYoung is in that crew too, and that they might have devised this together. If anything, like Kate Mara and Paul Rudd kind of feel like the Hollywood outsiders being brought into this universe. But I think you're right. The cinematography definitely helps it feel cinematic. And also I felt like a lot of aspects of this film were shot like a horror movie.
Oh yeah.
And in many ways it kind of is. There are moments of this film that are like deeply uncomfortable to watch.
Yes.
And intentionally so, but sequences. Tim Robinson's very good. One of his comedic hallmarks is just being really good at being the kind of person that you wouldn't want to be stuck talking to at a party.
Yeah. He's extremely socially awkward, and you don't want to. Yeah, if you got stuck talking with him, you'd very quickly try to find a way out. But that's the good thing about this movie is the whole thing. He is very consistently that way. And he's very consistently the tagline for this movie is guys shouldn't have friends, which I love that tagline because that's just what the movie is.
Well, and in the midst of like this online discussion about the male loneliness epidemic, like we talked about this with adolescents and stuff, like what's happening to men on the internet, and are men okay, and all this stuff. But then so many people, there's a lot of commentary on the internet too that's like, this, if there is a loneliness epidemic with men, it's largely self-imposed. It's largely men who are making themselves into people that are just a bummer to be around and like hard to engage with. And it's interesting. There's an aspect of this film where I feel genuinely bad for Tim's character because the character is just a little bit more human than a lot of the characters that he plays on I Think You Should Leave. I Think You Should Leave characters are like pushed so high that like I don't feel bad for them. I'm just laughing. And it's just a funny scenario. But this character has just enough humanity that I go, oh, I've met guys like this who have a really hard time making friends. And anytime they do, and it goes well for a little bit, they can't help but like
destroy it for themselves.
And it's so sad because I go, I want people like that to be able to have friends. But also like, I don't have the solution for them. I have a hard enough time keeping up with my own friendships and making sure I'm paying adequate attention to the friends I already have. And so when someone like that crosses my path, I'm just sort of like, oh no, I'm so sorry that that's the situation you're in. I don't know how to fix it for you. And I also don't think I can like donate several hours a week to like being your friend.
Yeah. Well, and the funniest thing about this character, you say he has humanity, which I totally agree. The funniest thing about one of the funny things about Tim Robinson is that he plays pretty much a child,
right?
In a lot of his sketches, he's just kind of this like child character, and in this, there are many people who never really grow up. Who kind of still are that like child type person. And the thing that he does in this that I notice that I see people doing all the time, especially when you're a teenager, is you'll do things because somebody else did them, right? Like you're like, oh, he likes these cool swords and like old things. So I'm going to go get a sword and people will think that's so cool. Yeah. And like, I'll say facts about it. Cause like he thinks that will get him friends because he thought that was cool, and Austin did it, so he's going to do it too.
Yeah,
it's such a unique quirk, but I think it's very, very intentional. I mean, it is played for comedy, but I'm also like, I see people doing that all the time.
A big aspect of this film and of the relationship between its two central characters, Paul Rudd, played by Paul Rudd, and by the way, Paul Rudd's character's name is Austin.
Yeah,
which we both were like, Austin Carmichael. Yeah, and but a big funny element of the movie is that their friendship feels like a friendship between two teenage boys.
Yes,
where like. Yeah. Austin showing him all these cool things, like check out this hideout I found, and like look at this like little like secret like back, like the kinds of things that I would do with kids in high school, where they'd be like, I found out how to sneak into this building, and like let's and be like, whoa, we're gonna get caught, and stuff like that. It's funny to see men in their 40s doing that, and I don't necessarily know that in real life there are 40-year-olds who are doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that element still exists of like, we're all just teenagers trapped in adults' bodies.
Yeah.
I just said this to you tonight. Like your kids told me a joke when I got over here. I can't believe they got me.
They did. This is great.
Your daughters looked at me and they said, "Hey, go look under there." And I said, "Underwear." And they got they got me so good. But I was over at another friend's house and all their kids were playing, and their kids like came out of like this little playhouse and they were like, "Kids rule, adults drool." And in my head I was like, who you calling an adult? No, they said grown-ups. And I was like, who you calling a grown-up? But then I was like, I'm 37 years old.
Yeah. We're not young. We're old.
Yeah. But so I like that the way that these guys become friends in this movie is it's very like little kid, playful, whoa, cool car, like things like that.
Like, we're gonna have a boys' night, like and he says we're gonna have boys' night. You better get ready, and then the next they cut to them just sitting in a garage and like drinking beer.
Not
doing anything.
And he's trying to make it cool by being like, check this out, knife.
Look at this sword. He's like, it's from a knight. A knight on this.
Yeah. Okay, so if you have not seen Friendship, watch some Tim Robinson, go see Friendship. See it in theaters, support a small movie. Again, A24 taking chances on original material, on an original script. And also like, when was the last time you saw a really good comedy in the theater?
Very true.
Like people are complaining that there's not enough good scripted comedies. Here you go.
Yeah. Go see it.
One of the best comedic voices in our culture right now is in a very good film. Go see it.
Yeah.
And but this is a spoiler alert as we get into sort of some plot details for Friendship. So if loosely, if you've seen the trailer for this movie, that's the movie.
That's the movie.
That's the movie. Yeah. It starts off with, but there is an element here that I was like, weird that they put that in. We start off with like a support group that Tim Robinson and his wife, played by Kate Mara, are at. I had a friend say that he didn't like Kate Mara in this. What do you think of her?
I thought she played the character very well.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a problem with her.
Yeah.
Because I think she did it. I actually thought she brought a lot to his character, because she's way out of his league.
Yeah.
And like people always and she's probably cheating on him.
Yeah.
I mean, she's always like, Devin, which is the running joke throughout the movie. Like, I'm going to go see Devin, my ex. And he's like, who?
Yeah.
And every time he's like, who? She's like, seriously, do you not listen to me? What? And like, she's probably having an affair with him. Yeah. Because that was the guy at the party. Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. So, but I mean, I don't think you're supposed to like love her, but I thought she was good.
She's the straight man for the film. Like she's a normal person.
Yes.
And it is weird that they're married because she's very conventionally attractive. And Tim Robinson's got a very unique look.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything. He's got a very unique look.
Yeah.
And that's part of the comedy. And she's also like just a very normal person, and he's not.
No.
And so their pairing is I think intentionally comedic. But I think, if you would cast someone who's like from the Tim Robinson verse, like if you would put like Patty Harrison or someone in there, I love Patty Harrison. I think she would be hilarious, but I don't know that this role's supposed to be hilarious.
No.
I don't know that that's the job of this role. But anyway.
Well, I think you're totally right. She's the straight man.
Right.
She's the one that's like normal.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she's not funny is kind of what gives it more humanity.
Right.
Like we're talking, which like, this sets it apart from just a TV comedy or any other. Like, she really does, like, you feel for her because she did have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could totally, if you had a comedic actor in there, they could definitely make it funny. But she like brought it down to like, this is a dark comedy.
Right.
It's supposed to be dark. And so having her be like a real person who has real problems, like, made it more dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually really liked it for the tone of the movie, because it's like, this dude is like, he's blowing it hardcore.
Yeah, he's not getting what he needs to do
Yeah,
as a partner here in this situation to show up for her.
Yeah.
And we start at a support group where she's talking about how she's 12 months cancer free.
Yeah.
And and she's talking about all these things in her life that are nice, but then she has this really funny, she goes, I mean, I don't orgasm anymore, and I probably never will again. And Tim Robinson's got a great look at her, like, what? Which, like, right off the bat, I'm just dying laughing. And then Tim Robinson looks at the group and he's like, I'm orgasming just fine. So dumb. Which is like instead of wondering what am I doing as a partner to not help my wife out, or like he's just like, don't worry everybody, I'm okay. I'm getting mine.
Well, and this is the other thing about his character too, is that he always makes himself kind of like the victim.
Yeah.
Like, because at one point he's like, well, I didn't have a good time. Like, Kate Mara gets lost. And he's like, well, I lost my phone. And like, that wasn't very fun. And it's like, your wife's been gone for like a full day, like missing.
I think it's like 2 or 3 days.
It is like a few days. Like, your experience was not as bad as hers.
Yeah. But pretty quickly into this movie, Kate Mara, we're back from this support group. Again, this is an element where I'm like, I wonder if there was a version of this script where her having cancer was more of a thing.
Yeah.
But it just kind of seems like a detail where, again, it's like, but I guess this is my question, is like, I never really got at any point in the screenplay why they were ever married. Like, what about it? What about him? What she sees in him? Maybe the movie just doesn't need that, but he's just so like, and the movie says they've been married for 16 years.
Well, they have a 16-year-old son.
Right. And that's also really, so in this first scene, she kind of like, she tells him like, oh, the mailman messed up again. He gave us our neighbor's mail. Why don't you go run it up to him? But also, like, we see the son talking to the mom and he kisses her on the lips. And Tim Robinson's like, you guys kiss on the lips?
Well, it's like a intentionally awkward kiss.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Longer than people should, mother and son should.
Right. Yeah. It's, they do the old Tom Brady. And, but he runs this package up to his neighbor, and you've seen this on the trailer if you've seen it, and it's Paul Rudd is his neighbor. And they exchange pleasantries there in the doorway, and Paul Rudd gives him like a kind of a cool sign off, like, you stay curious. Craig. I think his name's Craig.
Craig Waterson?
Waterton or something.
Craig something.
You stay curious, Craig. And Paul Rudd's definitely doing kind of like his Anchorman thing here, where he's like the cool guy.
Brian Fantana.
And he's a news guy.
He's a weatherman.
He's a weatherman.
And Anchor, or no, he's a sportscaster.
He's a sportscaster.
Brick is the weatherman.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's playing that same type of like really cool, like
middle-aged
really cool
guy.
Yeah.
He's
in a band.
He has cool things. And early on in the film, he and Austin start hanging out more and more. And Austin's always showing him cool stuff. Like, he shows him like this rock that's like, check this out. This is an axe that was carved by early Homo sapiens. This was a weapon made by the first, and it's like, that's where Tim Robinson's character gets the idea that like, oh, cool.
Yeah, cool
like,
stuff.
Like having weapons and knowing things about history is cool.
Yeah.
And then, like on one of their adventures, Austin takes him out to like a bog, and they find a wild mushroom, and he's like, you grill that baby up, that wild,
Yeah.
It's like, obviously, like, picking wild mushrooms and eating them, you have to know what you're doing if you're going to do that, because a lot of those you should not eat.
No.
And definitely don't eat them raw.
Which he does later on.
Yeah, but he just thinks this guy's the coolest. He's on the news. He's watching him on the news. I like all these like kind of little fantasy sequences where he'll kind of be staring at him and just sort of imagining life with him, like out at bars, drinking.
Well, yeah, and he goes to his show.
Yeah.
He goes to a show and he is imagining, which again, this is on the trailer. He's imagining that he is playing the drums, and Paul Rudd's like, well, you should buy some drums. We'll jam together. He's like, oh, yeah. Like, every time Paul Rudd suggests something, you can tell that Tim Robinson thinks that is just the coolest idea that he has ever heard.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to do it. Because he like basically becomes obsessed with him pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So they go, he sees him at the bar. He's playing in a band, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll play some punk music." So the rest of the movie, he listens to punk music.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, I love what that scene where he's listening. It's literally like pop punk. It's like
Yeah.
Papa Roach or something. I can't remember what the song was, but it was like something like "Back Up, I'll Take You On." Like it's that kind of music. Like it's not like Misfits or like the Sex Pistols or something like that. It's like pop punk music. But I love he's playing the song in the kitchen, and his son's like, "You like this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I like punk.
Yeah,
I'm punk."
Yeah.
Yeah. And, they have this budding friendship and, there is this running joke with Kate Mara and how she's always going to see her ex-boyfriend Devin and her and the son have this weird relationship. Paul Rudd eventually invites him over to hang with like his other friends.
Well, before that, they go to this like this abandoned, I don't know. They have to like break into this one place and there's a well and they go into the aqueduct system. And he just thinks that is the coolest thing. They break into the city hall,
which is truly an insane thing for two men in their 40s to do.
Yeah,
like I talk about this with Jesse and Lincoln all the time. That like some of the stuff that we would do in high school, because we would late night we would go and like jump the fence at the Willow Creek Country Club.
Yeah,
and like swim in the pool.
Yeah,
and more than a few times we had the cops called on us, and the cops.
I went a couple times. Yeah, that was great.
And sometimes you'd go like running through the golf club, the golf course, what the sprinklers on, and you go like streaking or whatever. Yeah. But like we talk about how we don't do that stuff as older men because we would go to jail, like if we got caught. And how do you explain that to like your family? Like, I don't know, my friends and I were on an adventure.
Yeah, we were on an adventure. We wanted to go in swimming, so we hopped the fence at the pool. Yeah, you can't.
It's like, guys, no.
That's the thing that you dumb kids do.
Right. And I love that that's sort of how their friendship goes is Paul Rudd's like, come on, man, let me show you my little secret place.
Yeah.
And Tim Robinson the whole time is just like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
This is a funny joke is they're in the sewer system, in the aqueduct system, and he gets his pants all dirty. And then he goes like, oh man, now I'm going to have to give more money to, what was the
name? Oh, I got, it's like, it's something diner. It's like, it's like,
Diners Club or something, or it was something like maritime, like something with
it's like the sailors dinner, I don't
something
know.
Like that. But then he's like, what's that? He's like, it's this catalog, it's the only clothes that fit me just right. Which is like such a Tim Robinson joke. Like there's these moments where I'm like, that's such an I think you should leave thing, where he's like, it's the only clothes that I can wear, they're the only clothes that fit me just right.
Oh, I gotta fit. It was so funny because it was, I can't remember what it was though.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was either, but it was a really funny bit. And then he loses one of his shoes and you see like the logo of that catalog in his shoe.
Yeah.
And then he's like, so what's this place? He's like, no, head to toe. That's all I wear.
Yeah.
That
was really great stuff.
Yeah. It's like the Dan Flash's sketch from I Think You Should Leave, where he's like, they got these really cool shirts with really complex patterns on them. But they find through the aqueducts that you can get into City Hall and you can get on top of the building. And,
Well, and he says, so earlier on, Tim Robinson tells Paul Rudd, like, he's like, he's like, well, I want to move. So Paul Rudd is a weatherman, and he's a weatherman in the evening news.
Also, he just moved in, and Tim and Kate Mara are on their way out.
Yes,
they have a for sale sign in their yard, which is also a thing that kind of never really pays off. No.
But he wants to be a weatherman in the morning news, and so Tim Robinson tells him, you should just ask. You should just ask. He's like, I didn't have my own office, and then I just asked, and they gave it to me. He's like, I could eat whatever I want in there.
Stinky
stuff, big stuff, embarrassing stuff. Like, again,
such a Tim Robinson like riff there. Just like, I can eat whatever I want in there. If it stinks.
But because he told him that, because he told him, hey, you could just ask for it.
Right.
Paul Rudd asked for it, and then after the aqueducts, he's like, hey, I asked for it, so like, thank you. Like, that's kind of why he's like, you're my good luck charm, man. And he's like,
Yeah, again, it's one of those movies where like you can just see the writing on the wall so early that it's like one of these people likes the other one more.
Yeah.
And they're going to get their heart broken. And again, this is all in the trailer.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So Tim Robinson is like, he's just so excited to have a friend and to have a friend who's so cool.
Yeah.
He's the weatherman. He's the daytime weatherman now. He wants, he knows about cool things. And what's the truth about Paul Rudd's character that we come to find out later on in the film is that he's in many ways just as insecure and struggling just as like, his whole thing, like it's not actually cool for a middle-aged man to be like, to have like a gold-plated pistol in his office, and to be like obsessed with like sports, to be like, I want to drive a convertible, like a yellow, like whatever that car was.
A Corvette.
Yeah. He wants to drive a yellow Vet and stuff. And it's like, it's just like, it's not like that guy's struggling just as much. But Tim Robinson, being a person who's never really probably made friends easily, thinks, whoa, you're so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kind of, the turn of the film is Tim gets invited to hang out with all the boys.
Yeah.
He gets invited to like a proper boys' night.
Yeah.
And there's initially, they're all kind of getting along. They're drinking beers in the kitchen. They're having snacks. They go into the garage, and there's this amazing moment that's also in the trailer where one of the guys is like kind of getting vulnerable with his friends.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm nervous about my daughter. Boys are noticing her and I don't know what to do. And they just break out into My Boo.
It's such a weird, like, this really is a great part in the trailer, and it's just as great in the movie because they start singing and they all like sing together and they're like, it's such like a, oh yeah,
boy, you should know that.
Yeah.
And it's like so tender too. They're being like so nice to their friend. They're like, and they're singing a song that's literally like a love song, like an R&B love song.
Yeah.
From the 90s. It's so
I know,
good.
it's so weird because
it's awesome.
It doesn't relate to the situation in any way.
No, it's not a song that men would ever like sing in chorus to a friend to cheer him up.
About his daughter.
Like, what? At night, I think of you.
He's like, he thinks
if your game is strong, give me a call, boo. Like, that's the lyrics. But Tim Robinson is like so blown away by the camaraderie of these men. He's watching them all sing and he's like, wow.
Yeah. Like I found my group.
I'm in my group.
And we forgot to say right before this happened.
Yeah. There's two big party fouls.
Two big ones. This is the first one. He starts out and like he meets everybody and it's going fine. And then like he's outside smoking and there's like, he's like, oh, it's nice to meet you. And the friend goes inside and closes.
Which, by the way, the only reason he smokes is because Austin smokes. So.
And so like the friend closes the sliding glass door and Tim Robbins is like, okay, you're cool. Like you've got really interesting things about you. Like this is all going to go really well. And he turns around and he walks straight into the glass door. And it like, that was probably the second hardest that I was laughing.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but anyway, he walks straight into the glass door and then he opens it and they're like, whoa, you okay, man? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, it's all good. And then it shatters right behind him. And he's like, so how'd you guys all meet? And they're like, everybody starts laughing really, really hard.
Yeah. It's a really solid moment of like classic physical comedy. Like, runs into a door. Oh, that was embarrassing. Comes back inside, says something, and then the whole door shatters. Yeah.
Well, and it's just a great, like, little, because everybody's like wondering what's going on. And this is really kind of the first moment that things go wrong.
But he saves it.
He does.
He saves it with a great line. He's like, so how'd you guys all meet? And then they all laugh and he's like, the door, and he kind of gets back from it. But then they, and this is one of those funny things in like a comedy like this where I'm like, everybody's to blame here. They decide to do boxing. And again, this is such a teenage, we did this. We did. As teenagers, we would like, for whatever reason, we would, if somebody had boxing gear, we would throw on the headgear.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even headgear. We would throw on the gloves and we would just pummel each other.
Yeah.
And like, if I'm hanging out with a group of guys my age and they suggest let's box, my answer is absolutely not.
I don't want. I'm gonna get a headache if I get hit.
Yeah, not a chance in it. Like no way. You're not getting me in there. Yeah. But all these guys are boxing each other, and then Tim gets put into box with Austin.
Yeah.
He's and And it's really funny because the first couple of times Austin just like jabs him straight in the face and hits him really hard. And then I like his response where he goes like, let's both agree to be a little safer. And then Paul Rudd gets him again, jabs him again, and then he's like, you know what, I think I might be done. And Paul Rudd's kind of turning around, and he just sucker punches him hard, twice, in like the back of the head. Yeah. And Rudd falls down and is like kind of unconscious almost for a minute. And that's the party foul that kind of is the beginning of the end.
Everybody turns on him at that point. He's like, he's okay. He's all right. He'll be fine. Like, that was funny, right? And then this is very, very Tim Robinson. Mm-hmm. He like, everybody's looking at him like, okay, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, I know my punishment. And he goes over and he puts soap in his mouth. He's like, sorry. I'm really sorry. Yeah. And he puts the whole soap in his mouth, and they're all like, what is wrong with this guy?
This is an I think you should leave sketch.
Yeah.
Where everyone's just like, stop, you know? And then he puts another soap bar in his mouth, and he's got two soap bars in his mouth. But it's like, it's him trying to save the faux pas the same way that he saved it upstairs. But this time no one's laughing.
Yeah.
And it's that, and this would happen in an I think you should leave sketch where he's trying to like divert attention from the awkward thing he did, but no one's buying it. And and he does that several times in this movie where he'll like do something crazy and then later on be like, I was joking.
Yeah.
But anyway, they basically the party's over.
Yeah.
And he leaves on very awkward terms, but it's still not like official that their friendship's over. And then I think he shows up to his work because he's calling him. By the way, like at this point, he doesn't have a phone because
he dropped his phone.
He dropped his phone in mud, and Paul Rudd told him like, oh, you shouldn't have a phone. I don't have a phone. So to like be cool, he didn't get a phone. So he's calling him from his work phone, and he's not answering. So he shows up to the TV studio to like surprise him, and Paul Rudd's like, dude, you can't be here. And then he gets his mail again, and he brings him the mail to be like, hey man, I got your mail.
And he got a drum set.
Yeah, and this is great. He gets a drum set, and he's like, check it out. He's like, let's jam.
Like, oh, you got the really expensive one. He's
got green to match your guitar.
Yeah, match your guitar.
Yeah, and this is where he tells him like, hey man, I think this friendship has ran its course. Yeah. And I don't think we're going to be friends again. And this is where, the movie just starts taking this really dark dive into, again, like you see it all in the trailer. It's like, he kind of delves into madness trying to desperately get this friendship back.
Yeah.
And
he does all the wrong things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at first he tries with his coworkers.
Right.
He's like, oh, we're going to have a boys' night. And then he pulls out like this little sword that obviously is just like some sort of novelty.
He's trying to be like Austin with the axe.
With the axe
it doesn't work. No. His coworkers don't really vibe with him. But then the reason why he kicks them out is because they won't stop spoiling Marvel movies. And he's like, I told you, no spoilers.
No spoilers for Marvel. Yeah. The Marvel joke is a runner throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty hilarious.
And everyone just keeps calling it like a Marvel.
Yeah.
Like he starts it early on in the film. He's like, I heard there's a new Marvel out. It's supposed to be nuts.
We should go see that.
Yeah. And then like later on, another guy, like there's like an ad campaign that pitches a mayor as a superhero. And the mayor's like, I look like a Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that goes through kind of the whole movie. But this scene where they're hanging out, the guys just want to like talk about some of the Marvel movies, and he's like, sorry guys, I really gotta be firm about this rule. This is a no spoiler cave.
And then he kicks him out. They're like, we've been here for like 40 minutes.
Yeah. I also think that they're like talking about like Infinity War,
which
is a movie that's like 7 years old. He's like, don't spoil it.
Yeah.
But he kicks them out. So that friendship doesn't work out. He sees like those guys teasing him outside.
Yeah. And I think this is when he breaks into his house. He breaks into Austin's house.
He gets his mail again. So he goes to give it back. He knocks on the door. No one answers. And he winds. This is a sequence where I expected the movie to go further than it did.
Yeah.
Because you sort of see this familiar thing of like, oh, we're doing like the meet the parents thing where just like everything wrong. It's just going to snowball. And so what happens is he climbs the fence. He goes through the back door that he had broken previously. So it's just got like a sheet over it. And then he starts doing like very weird stalker stuff of just sort of like inhabiting Austin Carmichael's house.
Yeah.
And imagining what it must be like to be him. And he goes into his office and he's looking at all his cool stuff. And, he's got all these like medals and things like that. And then he finds this gold-plated pistol and he's like, wow. But then all of a sudden he hears his wife from the other room go like, Austin, are you home? And she's like, I heard somebody knock on the door. And you're thinking, oh no, this movie's going to like escalate this scene into like, he's going to like hide in the closet. Yeah. She's going to find him and he's going to like accidentally shoot the gun or something. Like, you're
I definitely thought that was going to happen.
But what happened? He just like gets out the back door and leaves.
Yeah. Now the gun, I totally agree. They definitely could have done more with that. Yeah. But the gun does come up later at least. Right. But it was like, I thought he was going to accidentally shoot it.
Yeah.
But I guess, so he leaves, he does take the gun, but then he leaves and then he like wants to go on this adventure with his wife.
Yeah. Since he can't be friends with Austin, he's trying to do all of the things that so like he has the boys over, he's trying to show them the sword. It doesn't work. He tries to take his wife on the like, hey, let's go on this adventure, and he takes her to the aqueducts and obviously she hates it. It's a sewer.
She's like, is this pee? He's like, I think most of it is. Yeah.
And then he has her climb up into this area that he couldn't quite get into earlier in the film. And he's like, just go ahead. I'll meet you later.
Well, and he like totally berates her because she's like, help me down. I just don't want to be here. And he's like, he's like, you're so whiny. And like, I want to do something together. And you just don't even want to do it. So like they get in this little fight. He's like, just go ahead. Well, I'll meet up with you. Yeah. And she goes, she's like, you could tell she's upset. So she walks away and then he drops his
flashlight first, can't find it.
Then he somehow gets up and
takes out his phone flashlight. And by the time he gets in there, he can't find his wife.
Yeah.
And
she's gone.
This sequence really does feel like the way that it's shot feels like the lighting, it feels like a horror movie. And it's also like it's worst case scenario, like she's missing. Yeah. And he's kind of lost too in these sewer tunnels and he can't find his way to the city hall building and he winds up just like leaving her there. Like he just goes home. He just goes home and then eventually there's like a man he gets
he goes home and then the police show up.
Right.
And he's like, what's going on?
The fact that he doesn't call the cops and go like, my wife's missing. And yeah. But they show up because Paul Rudd had called the police saying, I think someone broke into my house. Yeah. And the dogs tracked the scent back to his place. Yeah. And I love this that he's like, and what, like, are you thinking that the guy broke into my house
the same
too?
Guy broke into my house.
And Paul Rudd's like, you broke into my house, but then he's like, like, where's your wife, sir? And then he's like, well, I think she's missing in the sewers. Like, so the police
they're like, where's your wife? She's in the sewers.
Yeah.
What? He's like, yeah, she's in the sewer. And it sounds like, what? Where's mom?
Yeah.
And then they're in the sewers, like in the aqueduct. And
they're basically looking for her for like several days, but they wind up, finding out that the reason why they know about this place is Tim Robinson spills the beans that Paul Rudd uses these tunnels to break into City Hall. Yeah, yeah. So they arrest both of them and like take them to jail. And, and it's just like, so his wife's just, I was honestly thinking like, is she going to like be dead?
Yeah. I was wondering if they were going to kill her too.
I did keep thinking again and again, this movie had moments that made me think they were going to escalate it to like, and I actually think it's kind of cool that this movie manages to, for the most part, keep things pretty grounded. Yeah. Every time like the break-in, you think it's gonna like go off the rails and go crazy, and they don't do that. They just make it like an awkward moment where he's on a work phone call and trying to get out unnoticed, and they keep it actually weirdly grounded. And then this is another thing where it's like, oh my gosh, he lost his wife in the sewer, like, and it's like she's gonna like be like eaten by sewer people or something. I don't know, but it's like. It is bad. It's like she's missing for several days and then is found finally. And like, obviously that's traumatic, but like he and Paul Rudd go to go to jail.
They're in the holding cell.
And we learn a big thing about Paul Rudd.
Yeah. He's like, they're arguing, and then Paul Rudd slips on some urine that's on the floor.
Yeah.
And he falls over and his hairpiece falls out.
Yeah.
And he's like totally bald. And Tim Robinson like pretends not to see.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Rudd like hurries and puts it on. And I love that he's like, Paul Rudd's like, is it okay? He's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I said, is it okay? He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's all he says. Like,
well, and again, this is where we start to understand that the character, the Austin Carmichael character, everything that Tim Robinson's character thinks is cool about him is also just him being like really trying hard to be a cool guy.
Yeah.
And I actually do relate to this. I don't feel like my friends and I at my age have the same kinds of friendships that I had when I was a teenager. I don't feel like we're getting into like shenanigans.
No.
But I do feel this thing still weirdly of like, and it's so strange when I'm meeting new people in a social setting, at a party or something like that, if I'm meeting my girlfriend's friends or whatever, this feeling of like, I hope they think I'm cool.
Yeah.
And that's such a weird, embarrassing thing to feel as a person who's like almost 40 years old, to be like, I hope, like a friend said to me once, and this was like 6 years ago, we were talking about like style, and he goes, you dress like you want young people to think you're cool. And I was like, what? And then he was like, yeah, you dress like, you don't dress like someone your age. And I was like, I guess I sort of do, but like, I also like, I buy clothing that I just genuinely like.
Yeah.
But I guess there is an aspect of it where like, I am trying to be like on top of trends, and that's kind of embarrassing, Yeah.
That's so funny. I've never, it is very much a weird thing to try and meet new people when you're older, especially as a man. I feel like it seems, I guess I can't say for women because obviously I'm not a woman, but it's as a guy, it's really weird. Now they had a sketch on SNL. This was years ago. They had a sketch that it was a dog park, but for men.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Tim Robinson like wrote that or something, because it was very much like, if you have a man, like take him to this man park where like he can meet friends, because there's like a bunch of guys that like get together and they're like all hesitant, and one of them's like Marvel. Like, but that's kind of what it's like. It's like you don't really know like how to act around people, and you really do want to put your best self forward to like feel people out. And like that's kind of what Paul Rudd is doing. He's just like putting out this persona of being so cool and put together, but he really like
everything is projecting. Like even when you go inside his house and you see like the couch that he has, and like everything is like curated to be like, I'm cool, and then we find like the hairpiece is kind of the thing that seals the deal, and it's ultimately the thing that sort of preserves a connection between them. That Paul Rudd, even though Tim Robinson is a hard person to be friends with and a hard person to trust bringing around your other friends, they see in each other this similar like desire to be thought of as cool, or
Well, and this is the thing that also weirdly makes it feel so much more like a movie, rather than just like a TV show. And I mean it because like it's never said what the hairpiece means.
Right.
It's all inferred, which you're totally right. Like this is what connects them. Yeah. Because Tim Robinson pretends not to see it so that he can like, tell him like, oh, it's okay. You're okay. And then the hairpiece, which will come up later, is also the thing that still connects him and Austin. Like that's the thing that makes it. And it's never explicitly said, but it's all this like theme of like, it carries so much cinematic weight to it that's never explained, that's all inferred, which I thought was really, really great, because it's a small detail that kind of gives it a lot more context and a lot more depth to the plot.
There's another SNL skit about like what it's like to be friends with men, specifically straight men, where I think it's a Bo and Yang sketch where it's kind of like straight male. It's like introducing straight male friend, and it's talking about like how exhausting it can be to be friends with like women and gay men. That they require a lot more attention from you, and they and I know this because I have a lot of platonic friendships with women, and I have kind of my entire life, and especially in adulthood, I've realized that my friends who are women they just want a little bit more from me. They just need me to check in a little bit more often.
Yeah.
And they just want me that, they just want to like, I hear from them all the time that they're like, I wish you would initiate a little bit more. Like, I wish you would just like reach out and ask to get coffee more often, or just like, just check in more often. Like, usually when I talk to them, it's because one of them has reached out to me and I'm like, oh, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
And then when but my closer friends, I realize like the women in my life just need a little bit more kind of reassurance, but I really value these friendships, by the way.
Right.
I feel like I have very deep and substantive relationships with these women, and I always have really, really good, interesting conversations with them. It's not hard for us to get deep.
Yeah.
Whereas some of my guy friends, it's like we have to feel each other out for a bit. We have to be like, cool, let's talk about sports. Let's talk about what movies we've seen recently. And then we have to sort of ease into, are we going to talk about our feelings tonight? Are we going to talk about what's going on in our real lives? But the SNL skit about straight male friend is just how it's like, this is a friend who you don't have to talk to him for a year. And if you just like see him once a year, he'll be like, what's up, dude?
Yeah, you'll pick up right where you left off.
You'll pick up right where you left off.
It's so true. It's all it all depends on the person.
Yeah.
But there are many people who want more, but most friends, it's just, especially straight men.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we'll just, like you and I, we can just pick up, like we get a lot deeper than most.
Yeah.
But like, that's not all the time.
No.
We can just like, oh yeah, what's up, dude? Like, what movies did you see? Like, we can just pick up.
We're doing the thing that a lot of male friends do to hang out, which is they start a podcast together. So it gives them the excuse to like talk to each other regularly and to be like, we might have to occasionally have a deep conversation because it will be required as a subject of our podcast. And I'm actually really surprised that there wasn't a joke somewhere in this movie about like Tim Robinson being like, we should start a podcast. Like, I can't believe that didn't happen in this movie.
That would have been great.
Yeah, that's wild to me.
Yeah. But yeah, the hairpiece is what really, because he calls him later and he's like, hey, that's like a really, I trust you to not tell anybody. And Tim Robinson is like, he takes that and he like latches onto it.
You trust me? And he's like, wow, okay. But also like the friendship is not fully repaired, and Tim or Craig, he's still going around looking for a way to replace what he's lost with this like high that he was on. And there's even a scene where like he's getting a new phone because he realizes like, oh, Paul Rudd lied, because that's another thing. Paul Rudd lied to him about not having a phone. Like he told him like, oh yeah, I don't have a phone, dude. I like phones are for losers. And then later he sees him with a phone. He's like,
of course I have a phone.
Of course I have a phone. And so there's a lot of that, but he goes back to get a phone and he tries to invite the guy that's selling him the phone. He's like, hey, you know anything about that bar, Rick's Bar across the street? He's like, I don't know, maybe we could just go over there and get a drink, have a couple. And the guy's like, I'm 18.
He's like desperately trying to be friends with whoever he can.
With whoever. And there's also several times in this movie where he asks young people like, you guys want to go over to Rick's Bar? And I love the idea of a bar that's called Rick's Bar, and it just sounds like so not cool. It sounds like a place where sad middle-aged men would hang out. It's like, I don't know, maybe we go down to Rick's Bar, get the Navy SEAL meal, and it's like
22,000 calories.
22,000. It's the meal that they ate after they killed Osama bin Laden.
He says that multiple times.
Yeah.
But the cell phone salesman tells him like, hey, if you ever want anything a little stronger than a drink, come and find me.
Yeah.
And at one, so
that sets something up.
That's earlier on. And then at this point, he's really pretty low.
Well, what happens is his wife comes back from
his
wife comes back from being lost in the sewer. We also got to talk about this party. She throws a party that's like a welcome back, like you made it through this traumatic event. And Tim Robinson, of course, playing the victim, he kind of just goes and sulks in the basement or in the garage with his drum kit. And this is where Conor O'Malley shows up. Yeah. And once again, he thinks like, oh, new friend. Because Conor O'Malley pops in. He's like, hey, you're the husband, right?
Yeah.
He's like, cool, drum kit, man. He's like, oh yeah, like 70s. And then Conor O'Malley's like, I just wanted to say like, you suck, dude. Yeah. He's like, you shouldn't have let that happen to your wife. You should be dead. And then Tim Robinson's like, get out of here. Like,
who are you?
And they like yell at each other. He's like, "You don't know me," But then Tim Robinson goes back in to be like, "Fine, I'll show them what a good husband I am," and he gives a toast, which of course is just the worst toast ever. To be like, like, "I'm so happy my wife's back," but I think it's in this toast where he's like, "It was pretty bad for me too. I lost my phone in there." He's like, "But I'm glad we got her," but like, it's just it's
bad.
And no one at the party is like convinced that everyone there's like, "Dude, how did you like not call the cops?" Not,
Well, I think someone was like, I think this O'Malley guy was like, you took her down there to kill her. He's like, "I didn't try to kill her." Like, I'm pretty sure that most of the people there thought that.
Of course. It's like, your wife was missing for 3 days in the sewer and she just turns up and we're not supposed to be suspicious of you. And but I think what he says, he's like, "Me and Tammy were pretty adventurous and this one got away from us." But then Tammy's ex-boyfriend, Devin, gives a speech, and it's actually a really good speech, but it's also like very clear that they're still in love. And but then Tim Robinson's like, "Look, we're getting way off the rails here. If you want to speak, you got to stand on the chair." So Connor O'Malley comes over to stand on the chair and give a speech, and like Tim Robinson goes out in his car and is like sulking, and this is just so funny because it's like, oh no, he's like, "Let's have a parade for
He walks out.
But we hear the end of Connor O'Malley's speech, and he's like, "And anyway, I guess that's it for me. And I also think that we should still be in Afghanistan."
Such a weird thing to say, but
it's so good.
It was great.
But so what happens here is Kate Mara, after this party, reveals to him, she's like, "Hey,
she goes on TV. And she's with Austin. She's with Paul Rudd.
Right.
And he's like, "Wow, like, you're really great." And then he like can tell things are slipping away. She comes home and she tells him like, I'm going to go stay at Devin. I'm going to go stay in Devin's pool house.
Yeah.
And she says that. And the last thing that he says is, "Who?" And she just gets up and walks away.
She basically tells him that she's leaving him. She also tells him that she had an orgasm thinking about leaving him. And it's just like, so like he's just like, "Oh, okay." Like, all right. But she's leaving him, and so he's very low because his wife's leaving him. He has no friends. And he goes back to the cell phone salesman and says, "Listen, man, I need something stronger." And by the way, he needs another cell phone because he lost another cell phone. And he's like, "I need something stronger than beer." So this kid who calls himself, like, what is it, like T-Boy. His name's Tony.
"Oh, yeah, my name's Tony, but when my hair's down, I'm T-Boy.
And so he takes him into the back and he's like, "I got weed, I got X, I got Adderall, like whatever." And then he's like, "Do you have any ayahuasca?" Because he saw a book on ayahuasca in Paul Rudd's house.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's like, "No, but I do have Toad." And so, it's like the episode of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson's licking toads. And he's like, "If you lick this toad, you'll have basically the craziest trip imaginable.
Yeah.
And it'll be like ayahuasca, but it'll hit way faster, way harder." And he's like, "It's $100 for a lick,
Yeah.
And so there's a great line here where, like, I love that, like, T-Boy just sets him up in the back office of this phone store and just kind of lays him down and is like, "Well, I'm going to go on my lunch break.
Yeah, I'm going to go eat some lunch.
You just stay here and trip." But he tells him, he's like, "When you lick this toad, you are going to have the most excruciating pain you've ever had, followed by a bliss that can hardly be described. And then you're going to break through a point to a point where you're going to touch God."
Yeah.
So it's like, we as the audience are primed to be like, this is going to be crazy.
Like, I thought it was going to be the weirdest trip.
Like, and this is maybe the best. And the movie, again, it's like, it's a theme of the movie that they set us up to have these really big expectations, and then they undercut them, and that's one of the comedic devices in the film.
Yeah.
But this is the best one.
This was the absolute, because you are like, this is gonna be crazy.
There's so many different movies that have like drug trip sequences.
Yeah.
Where that are like really funny, like, and you think like, oh, here we go, we're gonna get a really funny sequence of Tim Robinson out of his mind on toad venom.
Yeah.
And I also love as the kid's leaving, he's like, "I love you, Toad Boy."
He's like, it's T-Boy.
He calls him Toad Boy.
I love you, Toad Boy. Well, he takes a big lick.
Yeah, and Toad Boy's like, whoa, big lick. And he's like, what?
Was that too big?
Is that too big? So again, we in the audience are like, oh, here it comes.
Yeah,
here it comes. He's going to have.
When he's staring at this, like fire alarm.
I thought this was really creative. He's looking
yeah.
at the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's one of those kind of like patchwork tile industrial ceilings, office building ceilings. And then he walks by the ceiling.
I thought it was pretty
cool. I thought that was a fun transition and a creative use of like set deck and, an interesting transition. And his toad venom vision.
He walks into a subway. He walks into a subway, just a normal subway.
Just a subway.
I was like, what is going on?
But you keep thinking like, when's it going to get crazy?
Yeah.
Paul Rudd's working at the subway, and he's a much older version of himself.
Yeah,
he's got gray hair, and he's still kind of the cool guy. He's like, hey, what'll it be, big man?
He's like, Black Forest ham.
He's like, oh, the usual, man. You want all the usual toppings on it? He's like, yeah, you know it. And then
he's like, what type of bread? And he's like, oh, let's go Italian.
He's like,
ooh, all right.
Yeah, and then he's like, you want me to toast it? And he's like, you know what? Let's get crazy. Toast it.
Yeah.
And so this whole time you're watching the sequence like... You just keep thinking like Paul Rudd's face is gonna melt off, or the sandwich is gonna have like rats in it or something. Like it's gonna be something crazy, and then before he even gets the sandwich, T-Boy just comes back, and that's the entire drug trip. The entire drug trip is just him ordering a sandwich at Subway. And
T-Boy's like, how long was that? Like 2 months, 3 months? He's like,
it was like 60 seconds.
I went to Subway.
He goes like, so what'd you see? Did you talk to God? And he's like, no, I went to Subway. And he's like, yeah, like what happened in there? And he's like, I ordered a sandwich. He's like, was it a good sandwich? He's like, I didn't even get it.
Oh man.
And he's like, I feel like you ripped me off. Like I paid you $100. The toad ripped me off. Like,
that's the end of the sequence.
And that's it. And I legitimately for the rest of the movie kept being like, is it gonna come back? Like, is it gonna be like, oh, now the toad? But no, like as far as we can tell, there's a fan theory to be had here.
Oh yeah.
That the rest of the film is
part
his
of fever dream.
Is his toad venom vision. Yeah. But I prefer the version where his genuine toad venom vision is him ordering a sandwich at Subway. And this is the moment where we were laughing like well into the next scene.
I don't even remember what happened in the next scene.
Oh my goodness, that was funny.
Yeah.
And and then we're pretty much well into like the final stretch of the film.
Kind of the third act here.
Yeah.
But it's his son's birthday. They go to a restaurant. You have some funny scenes that you could definitely say like, oh yeah, this is his toad vision, but he basically buys a car for Kate Mara.
Yeah.
The whole movie she's been saying, I need a bigger car. And he finally gets it for her. It's a van and like things are going really well. She's like into him again. Yeah, she is. And it seems like she's coming back. And this is why I was like, is this the toad venom vision? Because she's like, but again, it's like the mystery of the whole movie is like, why does she like him? Yeah. But I also really like this bit at the restaurant where she gets bumped by the guy behind her. And Tim Robinson at the restaurant's like, hey, you bumped this young lady. Yeah. And he's like, and I want you to apologize. I'm not scared of you. I bought a van today. Yeah. And then the guy like apologizes and Tim Robinson sits down. He's like, we got to get out of here. Why did I do that?
Why did I do that? He's like, I am not at all ready to fight this guy. Like, we got to get out of here. But yeah, they go back to the house and they're like having a reconciliation as a family. Like
almost like as if she might move back in.
Right. And then once again, Austin Carmichael's mail is at his house and Tim says, you know what? And he gives it to his son. He goes, you take it back to him. Yeah. And so we really think like he's he's over it.
Well, and it was so funny because he's like, "Oh, I forgot the candles. Let me go get the candles." And she gives him the keys, and that's when you think like, "Oh, they're gonna get back together." And it looks like everything is set up to be like the end of a movie. Like, oh, he grew. Like he's not gonna do anything.
He had a monologue earlier too, where he's like, "I don't need friends. I just need rules and structure."
Yeah.
And then it's like, he's maybe all I need is my wife and my son.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, you don't need a friend. You just need a son.
I love the tagline. "Guys shouldn't be friends" is so funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's so funny.
So it's all snowing, and it looks like he's gonna drive away, and it's gonna fade to black, and it's gonna be the end of the movie. He drives away, but then like he backs up again. And then it does like this slow push in on him, and then it
we do like a little circle.
Iris in on him,
yeah.
and then the iris goes away, and it's the yellow Corvette because Austin got a yellow Corvette, and then he just like floors it.
Yeah,
he bottoms out. He hits this speed bump.
He bragged earlier in the movie about being the one who put the speed bumps in, and he hits the speed bump.
Totally bottoms out. Anyway, he breaks into Austin's house, and all of his friends are there.
Yeah.
And he's got his gun. He's got Austin's gold-plated gun.
Yeah.
And he goes in, and he, like, holds everybody hostage.
Basically is like, he's, like, begging them. He's like, "Somebody ask me a question." And he's like, "Ask me a would you rather." And then the guy's like, "Well, tell us a would you rather." And he's like, "I can't think right now. I'm so
just so much
nervous."
pressure. Yeah. He's like, "Ask me a question. What's your favorite food?" I can't get it.
And this is totally an I think you should leave sketch. Is like a guy at a party holds people at gunpoint and says, "Ask me a question about myself." And then when they do, he goes, "I can't think right now. I'm so stressed."
Yeah. Well, then he's like, there's a new guy there, and he's like, you got a new guy already?
Yeah.
"What's your name?" He's like, "Jim." And he's like, "Jim?" He's like, no, it's Jim. Like
jump, but with an I.
With an I. He's like, "Jim?"
Jim? He's like, "Oh man." But yeah, so then anyway, the gun goes off because Paul Rudd tries to get the gun away from him, and everybody hits the deck, and Paul Rudd's hairpiece comes off again. And Tim, to be a good friend, Craig, in order to be a good friend to Austin, goes, "Nobody look at me. Everybody get on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm crazy. I'll shoot you." And he does it to buy Paul Rudd time to put his hairpiece back on.
Yeah.
And he looks at him like, "Buddy."
Yeah, he's like, "Hey."
Yeah,
and
then he puts the hairpiece back on. He's like, "You're good." And then the cops show up, and he's like, "Oh, one of you called the cops on me."
"You ratted on me."
Yeah, which, like, of course, like you're brandishing a weapon. He gets put in the back of a.
Well, he runs away, and he runs through the same glass sliding door.
Yeah, runs through the glass door.
And then Paul Rudd is holding him. He's got cuts all over his face.
Yeah,
and he has a fantasy of the night when it first went wrong. And he has a fantasy of everybody be like, "Hey, it was great. It was great, Craig. Like, this was awesome." And then, like, he comes back to reality, and he's in the back of a cop car.
Yeah, but he looks over at Paul Rudd, and Paul Rudd turns around. Paul Rudd's, with all of his friends talking to the police about what happened, but Paul Rudd looks over his shoulder and winks at him. Yeah. And that's enough for Tim Robinson to be like, "Cool." Like,
he's like, "Oh," he like smiles.
And that's the end of the movie.
That's the end.
And it is, just kind of like a prolonged I think you should leave sketch.
Yeah.
About a guy who just like is terrible at making friends.
Yeah.
Is, really unintentionally funny. But that's the movie,
Yeah. And again, it is a prolonged sketch, but again, I really did like that. I was worried, like I was totally prepared to be like, "Oh, it's just going to be a sketch and it's not going to," but there was a little bit more deeper meaning. Like this isn't like the most amazing movie ever, but it had so much that I was very pleasantly surprised at like a lot of the themes and a lot of the things. And I'm like, this is all very crazy and very comedic, but I get it. Like I get some of these characters. I get what they're doing. I get what the hairpiece means. And like it was
the humor is definitely derived from the reality of, how embarrassing it is to be kind of a middle-aged man.
Yeah.
And also how hard it is to make new friends in adulthood.
Yeah.
Like making friends, I think throughout, like a lot of times in my life, I've thought, I'm so lucky that I've always had friends.
Yeah.
And we talked about this coming out of the theater, that I was just like, sometimes as an adult, I will meet a person who will just straight up say to me, and this happens especially like being a content creator and stuff, is like sometimes strangers from the internet who follow me will be like, will just be like, hey man, this might sound weird. Could we be friends? They'll be like, if we ever like are in the same city, could we like hang out? And they'll just be like, I have a hard time making friends. Could we be friends? And I want nothing more than to tell these people, absolutely, of course.
Right.
But I know that like realistically, that's not a realistic promise. Like I said, I have a hard enough time making sure I'm tending to my actual friendships and making sure I'm showing up for the friends that are already in my life and showing up for my family members. And like to have a person who I'm essentially like taking on as a friend because I feel bad. Yeah. There's no way I would be able to show up for that situation. But I definitely like, the fact that people are that honest and just saying like, I don't have a lot of friends. I have a hard time making friends. Would you be willing to be my friend? Yeah. And I respect it, but I'm also like, boy, I don't know what to do with that. Because I honestly, like, I feel sometimes overwhelmed with the friends I already have. Yeah. You know?
It is funny how hard.
Fun thing. See that guy?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably one of those black crickets that I always
We got a bug on the ground.
We do. I will get.
It looks like a cricket. Yeah, it's a cricket.
Yeah, we get all these little black crickets. I'll get them.
Yeah.
But making friends as an adult is hard. Like it's good to keep friendships because as an adult male, I don't know why. I think it's just like we already have so much stuff that we need to deal with that like making a new friend is hard enough.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know where to begin. Genuinely, when I think about at 37 years old trying to start from scratch with like a new guy, I'm like, what do we do? Yeah. How does, like my friend Colin is a good example. Colin and I have been making videos together now for like over two years. Yeah. And like he's like one of, if not the closest guy friend that I have in Los Angeles. And every time we hang out, it's in the context that we're hanging out with our group. Yeah. Like it's like always like me, Colin, and Kara, and Sid and Olivia, or like whoever, like our friends. And every once in a while, it's just me and Colin, and we're both like, boy, we don't just the two of us hang out very often, do we? And we definitely can talk about, but just like we realize like we only have the context that we have of knowing about each other is just like the last couple of years, and mostly it's in the context of like we get together to work, like we get together to make videos, we get but like he's one of the people that I see most often. Yeah. And it's, but when I think about like, what would I do to try to start being like, just like a random guy, like a neighbor that lives downstairs. And I'm like, you and me should be bros. I don't know. It's very scary.
It is. Yeah. Guys shouldn't have friends.
Yeah. Guys.
The tagline is true.
All right. Let's get into our scores.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay. So if this is your first time watching our little show here, we do scores for all of the movies that we see. Scores out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a technical rating. That's for the craft of the film, writing, acting, musical score, editing, all that, the nuts and bolts of what goes into making it. We give a score for the ending, how well we feel like they stuck the landing of the film. We give a score for rewatchability, for cultural significance, and a subjective score. So, Kramer, what's your technical rating for Friendship?
My technical rating is a 6.5. I'm giving it a little bit more because technically it's a very simple film to make. It is made more for the comedy. Mm-hmm. Like it's made to be funny. They definitely took these turns where it's like, this isn't really adding much other than humor. Yeah. But it does have enough. Like I don't think it should be any less than that because it was technically made well. And like I said, like it does feel like a movie. Yeah. But also they didn't do anything super special here. Yeah. So I feel, I don't know, maybe I should give it more because it was done well. Yeah. But I also like thinking of all the other movies, like this was a relatively simple movie to make. And they did it well.
Yeah, I'm all the way up at an 8 technically. Oh, wow. Nice. Okay. And I know we've been doing a lot of we did our Tom Cruise-a-thon, and like when you think about the technical construction of those Mission Impossible movies, they're all such a like they're genuinely like impossible feats each film. Yeah. And it's crazy what they accomplished technically. Yeah. So it's weird to try to compare those, but I think you need to compare each film on its own merits of what is this movie trying to accomplish and how well did they do that? Very true. And I'm like the job that they had for this film, I think that the kind of movie they wanted to make, they made for sure. And I think that like the things that I maybe dock it for is there's just like some loose threads in there in the script that I'm like, the Devon thing is kind of a thing where I'm like, it's there, but we don't maybe do enough with it. You know, the cancer thing is a thing that again is like there, but we don't really explore very much. I'm like, Paul Rudd's got a wife in this movie, and we don't really
I didn't even know he had a wife.
Yeah, we don't really know what to do with that character, and there's definitely a little bit of it can feel kind of just like a sequence of sketches strung together. But I think overall, like, the story that they wanted to tell and the kind of movie they wanted to make and the tone they were trying to hit with the cinematography and the scoring and the acting was all there.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when I see a comedy, I want to laugh, and I laughed I laughed very, very hard. So that's where I'm at with it.
I bumped mine up to a 7. It for sure should be at least that.
How about the ending of this movie?
The ending I was happy with. I gave it a 7 because I mean it did. I'm sure you could end this in a different way, but I did like that they kept it all pretty grounded for the most part, kind of like we talked about. I mean, he would get arrested, he would go to jail, but I did like that, you know, Paul Rudd kind of gives him that wink, and it kind of is like, hey, you're still looking out for me, I'm gonna at least give you something. So that was good.
I gave it a 7 as well. I feel like it felt a little bit maybe anticlimactic. Because it just felt kind of like another scene in the movie.
It did.
Like, it felt like this scene of him pulling out the gun and getting arrested and telling Paul could have happened in the middle of the film. And they could have kept going and kept escalating things to a crazier and crazier place. But again, that's one thing that this movie, I kind of admire the movie for having the restraint to like never let it get too crazy. And again, like, our favorite sequence is the sequence where it's like, if you're ever in this movie gonna like let it go off the rails, he just licked toad venom, this is where the movie can get nuts. And I love that the kind of magic trick of this film is every time you think that they're gonna like really amp it up, they just kind of go like, no, it's only gonna go to here. And somehow it still works, and never better than in that sequence. But the ending definitely doesn't quite like the movie peaks at that, toad venom sequence.
Ordering a Subway.
And then we just sort of end in a way that's like, I guess that's a fitting ending, but it doesn't feel like a super satisfying ending. But it's not terrible. No. Rewatchability.
I gave it a 7. I think it is a ton of funny sequences. I don't know how deep you can really get. Like, I mean, we kind of went over it, but you could watch it. There are some parts where it lulls, you know, a little bit, but I mean, I think if I watched it again, I would laugh really hard.
I gave it a 7 as well for the same thing where I'm like, there's some aspects of it that tonally they're doing what they want to do, and for me, maybe it's a little bit just kind of like, I'm not sure like if that works here, if that fits here. And also it's a movie where I'm like, I don't know if I can like go around recommending that people watch this with me, because I don't know if they're going to, get it the same way that I get it. For a long time, like in my family, we were a huge fan of the Christopher Guest movies. And that's a very particular kind of comedy where sometimes you show people I remember watching Best in Show as recently as like 3 years ago with a friend who I was like dying laughing the whole time, and she kept looking at me and she was like, I don't get it. And I just was like, it's just like these people, like just like these, and like, again, I mentioned Napoleon Dynamite, where it's a movie where it's like, I'll watch it by myself and I will get it, or I'll watch it with people who I know think it's funny. But I don't know if it's a movie I can just like universally recommend to everyone,
Totally get it.
Cultural significance
this is a hard one, as we always talk about, because it's new. I'm gonna give it a 6, but I think it could be more, because I feel like this could be very much a cult classic. But I don't think it's going to, like, I think people who love Tim Robinson are gonna love it. I don't see it being in Napoleon Dynamite, which really had a huge cultural impact. People just connected with that. So I feel like a 6, like, I hope it has a cult following, because I think it will always be good, but I don't think it'll have a huge impact.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm at a 6 right now too, and I think it could later on get more steam.
Yeah.
But right now, unfortunately, I do feel like the movie's kind of getting buried by like Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even like Final Destination Bloodlines.
Yeah.
And I just don't. I don't know that it's having as big of a moment right now with audiences as I thought it might. Especially just because I thought it might have a moment because A, it's A24 and people like A24 movies, and B, it's just been a minute since there's been a comedian like Tim Robinson in the culture. And it's been a minute since we've had like a really solid comedy to go see it in the theaters. So I thought maybe this movie would make a bigger splash. But again, we were in an empty theater with 2 other people. And I don't hear a lot of chatter about it on the internet either. And so I'm kind of like, right now, this movie's not making a lot of noise, but I could see it picking up steam later.
I think it has done well. I think it's done better than they expected, but I don't think they've expected it to do great. So, but yeah, hopefully it does. Hopefully the cult following does kind of catch on and people really see it later.
Yeah. And then finally, the subjective score.
Yep. Well, my subjective score is a 7.5. I really enjoyed this movie. Like we said, like that subway scene is probably one of the funniest things because this movie did it so well. They'll build something up and then they don't give it to you, which just makes it even funnier. Like it's a really
like a
funny...
minute.
I didn't even get the sandwich. Subway. I just ordered a sandwich.
So awesome.
I loved it. It was great.
It's so awesome.
Made me laugh. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing it with a friend. So I really liked it, but it's probably still not like, I mean, this comedy is really funny. Yeah. But like going back to this or going back to like Anchorman, which I think is so funny, like it'd be so much easier to go back to Anchorman. But I really did enjoy this movie. Yeah,
I gave it an 8. I really enjoyed it as well. It's it's not going to be up there with like my favorite movies of all time. It didn't like emotionally rock me to my core.
Yeah.
I like the themes that are being explored. I like Robinson and Rudd. I think that they're really fun. I like the cameos by some of the other people. There's some sequences in here that are like just like classics that are going to remain like some of my favorite things I've ever seen in a comedy. And yeah, I think it's going to be a movie that I know that there's certain people in my life that I can be like, you need to see it. You will love that movie.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at with it. What did you guys think about Friendship? Did you see it? Did you like it? Do you like Tim Robinson? Do you know who Tim Robinson is? Let us know your thoughts and your feedback in the comments. Kramer will always respond to you.
Yes, I will.
If you do that. And as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Tell people about the channel. We're trying to do our thing over here. So, yeah. And thanks for watching, as always.
Yeah. Bye-bye.